The streets of Nairobi have erupted in anger, and the death of one young man has become the catalyst for a nation's fury against police brutality. Albert Ojwang, a 30-year-old teacher and political blogger, was arrested on Friday at his home in Western Kenya for allegedly defaming a senior police official on social media. By Sunday, he was dead in a Nairobi hospital, his body bearing the unmistakable marks of a brutal beating. The circumstances surrounding Ojwang's death read like a textbook case of extrajudicial execution. Arrested by detectives, he was transported nearly 200 miles from his home to the capital and placed in a holding cell at Nairobi Central Police Station. Within days, he was pronounced dead, and an independent autopsy revealed wounds that painted a horrifying picture of his final hours. Head injuries, neck compression, and extensive soft tissue damage all pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Albert Ojwang had been beaten to death while in police custody. The revelation sparked immediate outrage across Kenya, with protesters taking to the streets carrying banners demanding justice and chanting slogans that have become all too familiar in a country where police violence has reached epidemic proportions. The demonstrations have focused laser-like attention on one man, Deputy Inspector General Lagat, who protesters believe must be held accountable for the culture of impunity that allowed Ojwang's murder to occur. What makes this case particularly explosive is the growing consensus that Lagat's mere stepping aside is insufficient. Protesters, opposition leaders, teachers' unions, and even religious leaders have united in demanding his complete resignation from office. The teachers' union has been particularly vocal, describing Ojwang's killing as an extrajudicial execution and threatening a nationwide strike if justice is not served. Their ultimatum is clear. If Lagat does not resign, they will call all their members to down tools until their slain colleague receives justice. The political establishment has been forced to respond to the mounting pressure. During a Senate inquiry into Ojwang's death, calls for Lagat's resignation rang out across the chamber. Opposition leaders have issued 24-hour ultimatums, demanding not just Lagat's resignation, but his immediate arrest. Members of Parliament have added their voices to the chorus, with Kasarani MP Ronald Karari publicly calling for the Deputy Inspector General to step down completely. The religious community has also entered the fray, with evangelical and Pentecostal church leaders holding press conferences to demand Lagat's resignation. This unprecedented coalition of voices from across Kenyan society demonstrates just how deeply Ojwang's death has resonated with the public consciousness. The fact that church leaders, traditionally cautious about entering political controversies, have spoken out so forcefully indicates the gravity of the situation. Legal challenges have multiplied the pressure on Lagat. A petition has been filed at the Milimani law courts, seeking his immediate suspension and eventual removal from office. The application argues that Lagat's continued presence could interfere with investigations and seeks conservatory orders to bar him from accessing his office or performing any duties related to the National Police Service. This legal maneuver represents another front in the campaign to hold senior police officials accountable for the culture of violence within their ranks. The international community has not remained silent. The European Union, United States, and United Kingdom have all called for transparent investigations into Ojwang's death. President William Ruto himself has condemned the killing as heartbreaking and unacceptable, but such statements ring hollow when they are not backed by concrete action against those responsible for allowing such brutality to flourish. What makes this case particularly significant is its timing and context. Kenya's Gen Z population, which has already demonstrated its power to mobilize against government policies, sees Ojwang's death as a direct attack on their generation's right to speak truth to power. The message is chilling. Criticize senior officials online, and you might end up dead in a police cell. This has created a powder keg of youth anger that extends far beyond the immediate circumstances of one man's death. The protests have evolved beyond simply demanding justice for Ojwang. They have become a broader movement against police brutality and the culture of impunity that allows security forces to operate above the law. Young protesters have been quoted saying this must be the last death under police custody, that they must stand their ground and say never again to such violence. The pressure on Lagat has reached a crescendo with recent developments. After days of mounting calls for his resignation, the Deputy Inspector General has finally bowed to public pressure. In a press release dated June 16th, Lagat announced his resignation, citing his need for conscious reflection on his duties and the importance of transparency during the ongoing probe into Ojwang's death. However, Many Kenyans view this resignation as too little, too late, and continue to demand that he face criminal charges for his role in fostering the culture that led to Ojwang's death. The case has also resulted in concrete legal action. The officer commanding station at Nairobi Central Police Station, Samson Talam, is expected to appear before the Milimani Law Courts on charges related to Ojwang's murder. This represents a significant step toward accountability, though many observers note that prosecuting junior officers while allowing senior commanders to escape justice would be a miscarriage of justice. The broader implications of this case extend far beyond Kenya's borders. It highlights the ongoing struggle across Africa between authoritarian security forces and a young, digitally connected generation that refuses to accept the brutality that previous generations endured in silence. The fact that Ojwang was killed for his online criticism of a police official sends a chilling message to bloggers, activists, and ordinary citizens who dare to speak out against official misconduct. As Kenya grapples with the aftermath of Albert Ojwang's death, the fundamental question remains whether this tragedy will become a turning point in the fight against police brutality, or merely another in a long list of extrajudicial killings that are investigated, condemned, and ultimately forgotten. The resignation of Deputy Inspector General Lagat represents a victory for the protesters, but true justice will only be achieved when those responsible for Ojwang's death are held criminally accountable and systemic reforms are implemented to prevent such tragedies from recurring. The streets of Nairobi may be quieter now, but the anger that drove thousands to protest remains. Albert Ojwang's death has become a symbol of everything wrong with Kenya's security apparatus, and his name will likely be remembered long after the current crisis passes. Whether his death leads to meaningful reform or becomes another forgotten tragedy depends on the continued vigilance of those who refuse to let his murder go unpunished.